With that, we bring in two experts, Fox News contributors Karl Rove, former Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush, and Robert Wolf, a former economic advisor to President Obama. Gentlemen, great to have you both here. You've both watched the American political scene for a long time. Karl, let me start with you, with your reaction to what we just looked at in Austin, Texas this week. It feels that the whole world has changed since October 7th.
Yeah, look, I live in Austin. It's a little blueberry in the middle of a deep Red Sea, so we do have strange things that go on, but that was an extraordinary moment, and it's emblematic of what's happening to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, in recent polls have shown, have a growing number, in some instances a plurality, of Democrats who now side with the Palestinian cause over Israel. And it was, after all, Israel that was brought into existence when Harry Truman was president of the United States, who gave it critical support in its opening moments. But I'm amazed by the comments. Think about what we just heard. They accused Israel of genocide when Israel has been the victim of neo-Nazis in the form of Hamas, saying we want to kill the Jews and kill the state of Israel. And it really is a remarkable testament of how far some of the elements of the Democratic Party have gone.
So you can feel the unsettling sentiment in the Democrat Party. Robert Wolf, let me bring you in here. These comments by former President Obama, the public nature of them, and the response, we're going to hear Bill Maher responding to it right after we hear what the former president said on a public stage as his predecessor is trying to manage all this. Watch this.
If you want to solve the problem, then you have to take in the whole truth. And you then have to admit nobody's hands are clean, that all of us have are complicit to some degree.
I am struggling with people's moral equivalency still. I mean, Barack Obama, who has rarely disappointed me, did so this week. The attack was only a month ago. A more savage attack than we've ever seen in reverse. There's a big difference between collateral damage and what Hamas did.
Robert Wolf.
Yeah, so I was in Chicago, and I actually had lunch with President Obama, and we've been speaking about it. I'm going to talk. This is not political for me. This is personal. I remember when I was 4 years old, sitting in my grandparents' room, where first time I came across the Holocaust, where they had their relatives from Poland and Russia there, with their Star of David branded in their numbers. So I support a lot of what Karl said here. This is not about where Democrats are or Republicans. I think President Biden has been very clear. I support his non-ceasefire unless there is a hostages, all 250 being released. But I'm also understanding about the humanitarian causes. We need to have that corridor between the North and South Gaza where people can get the humanitarian relief. But this is a war. And there is no moral equivalence between Israel protecting their statehood and their people versus a terrorist extreme like Hamas.
You know, it's interesting, the impact. And I think for a while we all looked at the likely scenario of Trump versus Biden, Karl, in the next election, all knowing that there's always something that happens that shakes this dynamic up. Right. So now you have this situation that everyone's watching. We're still a year away, but there are polls out there that show Trump beating Biden pretty handily, and the Electoral College is basically flipped from what it was in 2020 in favor of Trump at this point. You have said, though, that you think that either party who picks a fresh face in this environment will most likely win the White House. With that in mind, let's watch this. All right, hold on. We're going to go to the White House and listen to our reporter there. Then we're going to come right back to you, gentlemen. Hold on, please. I appreciate it. Watch Mark Meredith.
It was still a weather balloon. They said they should get the technology back. What kind of response are we going to see from the president this week on the spy balloon?
Well, as I said before, I'm going to let the president be able to sit down with President Xi and speak to him person to person, face to face, and again, not be doing diplomacy from the podium. And we can report to you afterwards, consistent with whatever is appropriate to share publicly on these issues. But I will say that President Biden took steps to take down that balloon once it was safe to do so and out of potential harm's way to civilians. We were able to recover it, to exploit it, and from our perspective, the critical thing is that because we were able to protect ourselves along the way of that path, we do not feel that there was any information gain that was problematic. And so the United States, the president, is going to focus at this point on how he stands up for and protects American interests going forward across the full range of challenges in this relationship, of which this is one.
Do you want China to apologize?
Again, I'm going to let President Biden speak to President Xi. I'm not going to stand here from the podium and kind of create threats or raise questions or make particular demands, because I think that will not be the most effective way to secure the diplomatic outcomes the American people are looking for.
Thanks, Jay. How would you rate relations between the U.S. and China since President Biden's meeting with President Xi last year?
Okay, our Mark Meredith in the White House briefing room today. There's going to be a lot of focus on President Xi in the days to come as they get ready for that meeting. But I want to go back to this issue of how this president is handling foreign policy. 46% disapprove, 50% approve of how he's handling this war. Here he is at the laying of the wreath of the tomb of the unknown soldier on Saturday, which was Veterans Day. And I want to just get a quick reaction to this because Axelrod and others have pointed to a number of troubling moments like this one, where the president appears for a moment to be a little bit disoriented. I don't know what else to call it. Robert, as you look at this, what do you say?
I think a year's a lifetime away, and we're going to have an election between two choices, in my opinion, former President Trump and President Biden. I think that's a debate I'm willing to have, and it's going to be interesting to see where the economy is, foreign policy is. But Karl knows, a year away predicting where something's going to be, these polls have very little meaning today.
There's a pile-on. Axelrod is just one of many, Karl Rove, who is putting pressure on the president's age as a big issue here.
Well, and they should. The year is a long time, and during that year, Joe Biden is only going to get older and more confused and more out of touch. And with all due respect to him, this is not healthy for the country, and it's not healthy for the Democratic Party. When you have nearly 7 out of every 10 Democrats saying that he's too old to be president, and nearly a majority of them saying that he lacks the stamina and mental acuity to be effective as president, something is fundamentally wrong. Look, in that poll that you mentioned where President Trump is beating President Biden in the battleground states, what was interesting to me was that Trump was ahead by 4 in those battleground states. Nikki Haley was ahead by 8, and a generic Republican was ahead by 16. And similarly, a generic Democrat beats Donald Trump handily. The American people, it strikes me, are saying we appreciate what both of these men have done, but we'd like to have the torch passed to a new generation. An election between a man who will be 82 shortly after the election and a man who will be 78 before the election is not exactly where we need to be in the challenging world that we face today.
These are all just sort of points along the way as we look at the year ahead and the election that is coming. Robert, thank you for being with us, sharing some of your personal thoughts and experience on what's going on. And Karl, always good to have you as we look at the year ahead. We are less than 12 months from an election, presidential election in the United States. Gentlemen, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.